The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. It is Wednesday, January 8th. 4-game slate in the NHL tonight. I'm your host, Andy McNeil, joined, as always, by Nick Martin of Daily Faceoff. Nick, how you doing, buddy? He's muted again. Can't figure out his audio. So I'll carry on for now. 0-3 night for yours truly last night. Totally missed on that one. Of course, the Maple Leafs and Flyers. I had over 5.5 goals in that game. 2-2 heading into the third period. But it took a while before the Maple Leafs were able to get the lead, and unfortunately, they were not able to get another goal. I would have took a Flyers tying goal because that would have cashed the over as well, but did not get that one. Draisaitl, of course, did not register a goal, or did not score a goal, and didn't even register a point against the Boston Bruins in Edmonton's 4-0 win on Tuesday. And Josh Norris had him to get a point, and he got 0. Nick, you back?
I should be. I don't know what's going on.
He's good. I can hear him. And you all can too. So, Nick, how you doing? Was last night a good night or a bad night for Mr. Merton?
It was a bad night for me.
Was it?
Lost on Zibanejad, had an assist late in the third.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, man, like all the goals that were scored in that game up to that point, and I was like, wow, he's still safe. He didn't get a point yet, and then I saw he got an assist.
And then the Blues collapsed.
Yeah.
What were the other? Yeah, it was not good. Not a good one.
Not a good one. Well, let's hopefully turn our fortunes around. As I was just saying, an 0-3 night for me last night. But hey, that's gambling. Am I right?
Yeah, that is gambling. I wish there was a couple less of those lately, but that's how it goes sometimes.
For sure. Anyways, we are live on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel, and also live on Twitter. So if you can give us a share, like, all that good stuff, leave a comment on the video, tell us how bad our picks were on Tuesday, whatever. You know, you do you. Just give us that sweet engagement that we crave so much. But anyway, we're gonna get into this 4-game slate here today, and you know what? Let's start with the Washington Capitals and the Vancouver Canucks. Let's go backwards a little bit, because obviously the Canucks have been in the news a lot lately for all the wrong reasons. Of course, JT Miller and Elias Pettersson have been heavily featured in trade rumors, and that goes as far as the reports out now from Josh. I think it's Yoey or Yo at the Athletic. He suggests that the Rangers actually offered up Mika Zibanejad to the Canucks in exchange for JT Miller, 1-for-1, and the Canucks said no. I don't disagree with that. I'd say no too. I think Miller is the kind of guy that a lot of people or a lot of teams want on their team. And if I was running an NHL team, I would want JT Miller on my team as well. But I'm not a fragile little baby like most of these young guys are in the NHL today. But Elias Pettersson remains out. Looks like he will miss another game, possibly on Wednesday. Do you have any insight on that, Nick, or is that the case?
Yeah, I think that pretty much summarizes what we know, which is that it sounds like he will be out, but he's close to returning. And I do think on the Miller subject, at his best, he's so good. And obviously, I'm hoping for that with my prop tonight. But he does escape criticism a lot for being pretty inconsistent. He really hasn't been at his best that often. And I think it's kind of that hard-nosed, get-in-your-face mindset that lets him kind of escape it. Whereas I think he's been just as inconsistent as Pettersson. I think a lot of Canucks fans would agree. So at his best, like I said, I think he's obviously great. He's such a gamer, but I do think that he's struggled to bring that level more often than probably is credited by a lot of people. So I think that's kind of the interesting point here. I wouldn't hate trading him if the value is as high as it seems to be.
Yeah.
with some of these GMs, but it's always hard to know what the actual offers are. And I feel like that's kind of the important part with a lot of, trade debates and that sort of thing, is you don't actually ever know what other GMs have offered. More or less, there's always these reports, but technically it's not like you ever know if these things are accurate or not, really. If someone goes out and says that.
We weren't on the call.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I do think that in this game, it is a good spot to target Miller getting 3 shots on goal. I played this prop on Saturday. Wish I played it again on Monday instead of backing the under, because that under was horrific. But throughout his career with the Canucks, we've seen Miller average a lot more in terms of shots on goal. And recently he has started to pick up his shot volume a little bit. He's over 2.5 in 4 of the last 6. And I think that says a lot when you consider kind of where his average is sat for most of his career. And as a Caps fan, I know full well this team defensively has fallen off pretty badly recently. And the news surrounding the team entering this game doesn't sound overly great. Apparently, some of the guys are sick. There's some players who might miss the game with illness. So keep your eyes out for the Capitals' final roster coming out of warmups, because I also think that the Canucks to win the game at plus 160, as low as I've been on them, is not a bad number. I think that right now the Caps are really scuffling. I was worried about them heading into that game with Buffalo, and they look pretty bad in that one as well. So I think given that this is arguably actually a plus matchup for Miller now, I think that it's a pretty good time to keep riding his shot prop while it's at plus 150. We've seen this, for most of last year, this was around even money, and his average suggested, obviously, that was fair. So I think that this is kind of a good time to keep backing that. The other one that I was a little interested in, just because the number's gotten so good, is Dylan Strome to go under 0.5 points, because that Ovechkin-Strome duo, they've been producing, and part of it has been the power play, but they've been really bad at even strength, and I think that's really stood out. But the thing that kind of scares me off that a little bit is apparently Carberry is considering putting Protas back with those two, and you know how high I am on Protas. He's been excellent lately. Him and Dubois have been the best Caps by a mile for 10 games here. So that's kind of scared me off it a little bit, but I'm definitely going to be watching the way they line up, because Strome to go under half a point was at plus 165 this morning. So I think that'll be an interesting shot if they don't end up giving them Protas, because the unit with Radish has really not been good at all. So I think it's kind of surprising how much his points have continued to, or how many points he's continued to rack up. So that's the other one that I'm watching on this game.
Yeah, the Caps, they haven't put together back-to-back wins since the holiday break, but they've only lost consecutive games twice all season. Meanwhile, Vancouver has lost 5 of its last 6 road games, and the Caps have been pretty good at home this season, 13-4-3 with 6 wins in their last 8 home games. But as you mentioned, with an illness potentially making its way through the locker room, there could be some hidden value on the Vancouver Canucks money line tonight. The Canucks, they have been struggling for a while now. They went 5-9 straight up in December. They had winning records in October and November, so that was a change. And they are just 1-2 so far in January. Obviously, the last loss pretty frustrating, kind of a low point of the season there. Blowing a 3-1 lead midway through the game, losing in overtime, just 48 seconds in on that Nick Suzuki goal. But yeah, it should be an interesting game between two teams looking like they're, basically polar opposites of each other. But as you said, maybe Washington not in the best shape right now in terms of their current form.
Yeah, and I do think the last note that is important too is Logan Thompson's going to start. He's 16-2-2,
Yeah,
and has clearly been better than Lindgren. I think Lindgren's had some bad luck and as a lot of, I guess he's not even really a backup, so it's kind of weird. But he's really gotten in goal in a lot of the games where the Caps have happened to play pretty bad, because I don't think the gap between them has been as wide as probably the records and numbers suggest. But it obviously, when you look at Thompson 16-2-2, it's hard to dispute who's been slightly better.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on and talk about the Colorado Avalanche. They're in Chicago taking on the Blackhawks. The Avs are rolling with 8 wins in their last 10 games. They've lost just 4 times since the start of December, going 12-4 straight up. Of course, Colorado surprisingly dropped a 5-2 decision in its lone meeting versus the Blackhawks earlier this season, back in October. But the Avalanche have still gone 9-3 against Chicago since the start of the 2021-22 season. Obviously, goaltending has been a big part of Colorado's turnaround. Since acquiring Mackenzie Blackwood, no team has allowed fewer goals per 60 minutes in all situations. Before acquiring Blackwood, the team ranked 29th in goals against per 60 minutes. So big change there for the Avalanche. But that's not going to be a factor on Wednesday, because this is the first half of a back-to-back for the Avalanche. They're in Minnesota taking on the Wild on Thursday. So it's not going to be Blackwood that starts on Wednesday. He'll be starting on Thursday in Minnesota. And with backup Scott Wedgwood still sidelined for what looks like another week or so, that leaves Trent Miner to make his first NHL start. He's a 7th-round draft pick from the 2009 NHL entry draft. He's performed well in the American Hockey League, .960 save percentage in 46 games with the Colorado Eagles. Not all this season, but over his AHL career. He got his first taste of NHL action back on November 15th when he relieved former Avs goaltender Justice Anna Noonan, who allowed 3 goals on 6 shots against the Capitals. So yeah, he stopped 12 of 13 shots in just under 13 minutes of ice time, but this will be his first NHL start. Of course, Colorado this season has been really good offensively, basically all season long. But since the start of December, only the Edmonton Oilers have scored more goals on a per 60-minute basis. So they're right up there at the top of the league. Nathan McKinnon leading the way with 7 goals and 30 points over that 16-game stretch. But Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar have also been scoring at more than a point per game pace during that time, too. Looks like Valery Nichushkin is going to remain out with a lower body injury. He's not expected to be back until the middle of January. Chicago, on the other hand, has they started off okay under their new head coach Anders Sorensen, but they won 4 or 6 games after the coaching change, but they dropped their final 2 games before the holiday break, and they've lost 4 of 5 since returning to action. Obviously, this includes that embarrassing 6-2 loss at Wrigley Field in the Winter Classic on New Year's Eve, which reportedly prompted general manager Kyle Davidson to rip the team post-game. And then they all apologized to everybody ad nauseum. But they haven't really improved under Sorensen, I don't think. The team still ranks among the bottom 5 in expected goals percentage, shots percentage, or shot attempts percentage, sorry. And only the San Jose Sharks have allowed more goals than the Blackhawks since he was promoted to the head coach position. They are scoring slightly more goals per 60 minutes under Sorensen, but they're still pretty inconsistent. They've scored 2 or fewer goals in 7 out of the 14 games since the coaching change. And all of those ended up being multi-goal losses. So yeah, not a whole lot has changed for Chicago. But one thing that has changed, we talked about this last time when we were discussing the Blackhawks, I believe last Thursday, that Connor Bedard has been a lot more productive. He scored 5 goals and 11 assists in 14 games so far. And that almost matches his production, 19 points under the previous head coach in 26 games. So he's the only point per game player right now, though, under Sorensen. And aside from Tyler Bertuzzi, who's been on an absolute heater, scoring 9 goals on 28 shots in those 14 games, Bedard's been the best player by far. Peter Mrazek is going to get the start tonight. He's gone winless in his last 6 starts. He only allowed more than 3 goals in 2 of his first 18 games this season. But he's allowed 4 or more in each of his last 5 starts. So there's been a big change there. But it is, I guess, worth noting that he is 6-4-2 with a goals against average of 2.44 and a save percentage of .922 in 13 career games against the Avalanche. From a betting perspective, I honestly think there is a little bit of value on Colorado here, on the money line, the puck line, whatever. But I like Cale Makar over 3.5 shots on goal, plus 134 at Pinnacle. You can bet this plus 125 at Sports Interaction, maybe plus 130 at another shop. But the plus 134 seems to be the best price out there in the Canadian betting market. Only 4 players have attempted as many shots as Makar this season. And he ranks 2nd on the team behind McKinnon in shots on goal. He's registered 4 shots on goal or more in 12 of his last 23 outings. So at plus 125 or better. I think he's a pretty good bet to register at least 4 shots on goal against a Blackhawks team that ranks as the 5th worst team in shots against per 60 minutes. But yeah, shop around for the best odds on this one, because there is some differences. I mean, I've seen Makar, I think, as low as plus 110 or plus 105 to go over this number as well. So there is a big difference depending on which sportsbook you are betting this one at. But I believe you have a player prop in this game that you like as well, Nick.
Yeah, I have 2, and I do think the Hawks, obviously they're not really doing better. They're playing differently. They are playing a more offensive game, and like you said, their offense has upticked a little bit. Defensively, not so much. And I think obviously when you look at the way they were playing previously under Richardson, it was a very defensive, conservative game. So they've opened things up a little bit. It hasn't necessarily meant better results overall, but it's a little more fun to watch, and it has helped. But Bedard and Bertuzzi, who I think there's a little value to back him to get a point plus 120. He's been kind of riding shotgun with Bedard as he's had his resurgence, and the Hawks power play has been really good since Seth Jones got back. Hasn't been that bad over a pretty large sample as well, but since Jones got back, it's clicking at about 28%. So I think there's a little value with Bedard at plus 120. And then the other one I like, the numbers starting to
Bedard
slip,
to get a point at plus 120?
Or sorry, Bertuzzi to get a point at plus 120.
Okay, let me just ask you, Nick. When you're looking at this one, I noticed that Bertuzzi, he's got 9 goals in 14 games under Sorensen, like I said, but he's only got 2 assists. So, do you lean a little bit more towards the anytime goal, or are you just hoping that he factors into the scoring somehow here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the goal could be the call with that stat in mind. I, at some point, feel like Bedard, having the option of him getting assists with Bedard on that power play, should play out. But
yeah,
I mean, he has gotten a lot of those goals right at the net, and I don't think he's been that involved elsewhere. So, yeah, there's definitely a case to be made that plus 350 for the goal could be perhaps another good option. And then, yeah, the other one I like, Lehkonen minus 145 to get a point. It's starting to slip because of the news that Drouin is out. That's the reason I like it. I'm speculating that he'll bump onto the top line in this game. And we've already made the case that Chicago has been pretty leaky defensively. So I think if you get him on that top unit, which has been red hot, we've obviously seen him play well with McKinnon in the past.
For sure.
But at this point, given the way the numbers have moved, you could kind of wait to confirm that he's going to move into the Drouin spot, as is my assumption. But I like that prop as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like that a lot. I think Lehkonen is the obvious choice to move up and play on the top line, considering his history there. But yeah, and I asked you about Bertuzzi anytime goal because I was strongly considering that one. I mean, with Trent starting, the Avalanche could have a minor setback tonight. Get it?
That's my hope, and I'm not really banking on him being horrible. Like
no.
I don't know. I
he's
feel
not
like
as good as Mackenzie Blackwood.
Blackwood and Wedgwood as well. They've both been.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a better case about how much goaltending matters, and even the Avs have said more or less to just completely sewer Georgiev, but they pretty much said that's been the only difference. And if you look at it, they're not lying. The Avs are pretty middle of the pack in terms of most defensive analytics, upper middle of the pack in the time that they've had those 2 goaltenders, but they've had a 5th best save percentage. And as a result, they're 12-3-1. So yeah, pretty good case that you know how much it really matters. And then the other thing is, look at San Jose. They were kind of looking respectable before they got Georgiev. Now when he starts, it feels like you can pretty much pencil in a loss. So yeah, definitely interesting to look at how much that has made a difference.
For sure. Before moving on to talk about some of the other games, I do want to talk about all the injuries that occurred last night in the NHL. I mean, Tuesday was just a bloodbath. I mean, at least 9 players left with injuries and did not return. This, according to the Daily Faceoff Fantasy account. We've had Sean Monahan in Columbus, Philip Hedl for the New York Rangers, Ilya Lyubushkin in Dallas, Alex Lyon, the goaltender for Detroit, Brock Faber for Minnesota. That's a big one. And Josh Morrissey for Winnipeg, another big defender out of the lineup. Stamkos for Nashville, Luke Evangelista for the Predators as well. And then Connor Zary got suffered what looked like a brutal knee injury, knee-on-knee collision with Drew. I can't even remember the guy's name, to be honest. Drew Hellenin or something like that.
Hellison.
Helson, yeah. I mean, not a household name, right? But
Yeah, he is in Calgary now, not for the right reasons, but
yeah,
yeah, that one definitely sucks.
yeah. Connor Zary, though, man, like that looked brutal. There hasn't been an update on his status. I imagine he's got to go through some tests and whatnot. But you watch that play back in slow motion, and his leg bent in ways that it's not supposed to bend. So I don't think you're going to have a good outcome there, and that's a big loss for the Flames. He's third on the team in scoring with 22 points, and third in goal scoring as well with 10 goals. So obviously, for a team that doesn't score many goals, that's a big loss. He's a pretty dynamic player, pretty good puck mover, and like as we saw last night on the play that he was injured on, he was about to drive to the net with some flair, but he got that knee on knee, and it didn't work out. So of all the injuries last night, obviously Morrissey's a big one, Faber's a big one. Who do you see moving the needle the most if they're out for any length of time?
Yeah, I think Morrissey and Faber. I think you'd have to say probably if both their teams were at full health, I'd say the Morrissey loss is the absolute worst one, just given what he means to them. He's their clear number one defenseman. I think if the Wild didn't have some of the, if Spurgeon wasn't out, the Faber one would be a little less bad. But I mean, those are both pretty significant. I think definitely you're going to want to be careful backing those teams in the next stretch of games. The Jets in particular, I don't know. They already haven't defended overly well. Morrissey's been a big part of driving the offense as well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they are able to hang in without his presence on the back end.
Yeah. Next up, we have the Florida Panthers and the Utah Hockey Club. Florida on the road here, 24-15-2 on the season. The Utah Hockey Club, 17-15-7. I don't have a lot of interest in this game. I think the line is basically right. It's pretty much where I would make it with the Panthers being around a -115 favorite, but they're -135 according to the betting market. But still, no really real value on the Utah Hockey Club here, if you ask me. Do you have any thoughts on this game from a betting perspective, Nick?
Yeah, the one prop that I like for half unit is Kachuk to go under half a point. I think that, I mean, it's a little scary after that Mika one last night that feels like maybe hurt my confidence a little bit. But if you look at the numbers, he is -8 and has 6 points in the last 13 games. So automatically that makes a pretty strong case when you're talking about a number +150 when he's been generating a point in well less than half the games for a pretty reasonable sample. And that line altogether, Bennett hasn't been overly strong offensively either. And then I think this spot could be somewhat low event. I think that, Utah, obviously with Vejmelka in goal, he's been one of the best goalies in the league. He's top 10 in goals against, betting total of 5.5, pretty even money line. And Utah will have a rest advantage in this game. So I think we'll see Utah play a pretty strong defensive game. I don't know if the Panthers are going to put together too high of a team total. So it'll definitely be a sweat. But I thought that +150 looked pretty long given the way that Kachuk's been playing offensively and that this is a fairly tough matchup for the Panthers to generate offense in. So that is the look that I liked from this game.
Yeah. I just couldn't find anything that I really liked there, but I definitely have noticed as of late the struggles for some of Florida's top stars, and so maybe not a bad spot to go with that kind of strategy. And finally, we have the Calgary Flames, who eked out an overtime victory over the Anaheim Ducks on Tuesday. Obviously, they didn't make it out of the game unscathed. With Zary had being injured and having to leave the game after that knee-on-knee collision with Drew Helleson. That's right. Now I remember his name. But back-to-back schedule here, or a tough back-to-back schedule spot. And as I mentioned on yesterday's show, it's going to be the Kings coming off a 3-day break here, so they are well rested. And making matters worse for Calgary, they started Dustin Wolf uh, on Tuesday, and now that means that Dan Vladar will be starting against the Kings in all likelihood. And there's a big difference there in how those two goaltenders have performed this season. Wolf ranks 11th in goal saved above expected and 13th in save percentage. Vladar, meanwhile, he is 67th and 58th, respectively, in those categories. So this is a bit of a tough one here. I don't love a whole lot, but I do like Adrian Kempe, who is the team's leading goal scorer with 19 goals to score an anytime goal tonight. Plus 160 at Sports Interaction, plus 164 at Pinnacle. He scored in each of his last 3 games. He's got 14 goals in his last 21 outings, and he's also been pretty productive against Calgary. 7 goals in his last 11 games over the past 3 seasons versus the Flames. So I'm going to go with Adrian Kempe. Late ad here to score an anytime goal at plus 160 or better.
Nice. I like it. That's kind of where I was leaning too. And it feels in my head like he's killed the Flames almost as much as he's done damage versus the Oilers. So it feels like every time he comes through Alberta, he does some damage. But yeah, I like that. The Flames, it feels like like last night, first off, me not winning my bet on the game, which was Kadri to get 4 shots, hurt because I think the game went almost exactly as I expected, and I managed to win my bets.
Very high shot total, right?
Yeah, and I feel like that's what they do versus bad teams, and I thought they would hang around. I didn't quite want to. I thought the Ducks would find a way to hang around while getting out chance. Didn't quite want to bet the Flames because I thought it would be a little bit dicey, and I feel like that was exactly the way the game went. But unfortunately, Kadri only had 3 shots on the goal, so did lose the prop that I gave out on that one. But yeah, I think you're looking in a good spot here with Kempe and the Flames. They haven't been overly good defensively. They've been a lot worse defensively on the road, which who knows whether or not that's a trend you want to buy into. But in a tough back-to-back spot versus a rested Kings team, I think the Kempe look is great. I'm a little tempted by the Kings in regulation here. I feel like the numbers that are out there aren't bad. I'm sure a lot of people will be liking the Kings to cover the puck line or win in regulation, and definitely wouldn't be talking anyone off of that bet.
Yeah, I mean, like I said yesterday, Calgary, they are 7-5 straight up against Los Angeles since the start of the 2021-22 season. But the Kings have won 4 straight home games against the Flames, and they are just 6-12 on the road this season. And Los Angeles has been on fire at home here. They won 9 straight home games, including 4 since the holiday break. And during this stretch, they've beaten some good teams, right? I mean, Winnipeg, Dallas, Minnesota, Edmonton, New Jersey, and Tampa Bay have all lost to the Kings on the road here in recent weeks. So no surprise that they're heavy favorites. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them cover the puck line or win in regulation at the very least on Wednesday.
Yeah, and I think another decent option if you see Kemper get confirmed could be backing the Flames to go under 2.5 goals, or even considering under 1.5 at plus 190. Those were 2 of the ones I was just kind of debating and further diving into as I wrote my Flames article before we started this. So I think that could be another look here. You talked about how much Zari has meant to the Flames offense, and he hasn't been on the top line lately, but the top line with Kadri and Huberdeau has really been the only one that has been going. And I think that Zari, he's been playing great, even if the numbers aren't fully there. I think that he's done pretty well to try and carry some far less effective units. So I do think that loss hurts, and that the Flames offensive upside in this back-to-back spot versus the Kings seems pretty limited. But we'll see. I mean, maybe LA thinks this is a good spot to rest Kemper. Wouldn't be overly shocking either.
Yeah, so we are approaching the midway point of the NHL season. I believe there has been 649 games played, so we're about 7 games away from the midway point of the season officially. And the NHL just put out some 2024-25 league trends. 6.1 goals per game It's the fourth straight season at 6 goals or more per game, second longest stretch in NHL history. 44% of games have featured comeback wins. That's the second highest rate in NHL history, tied for the second. 75.7% have been close games, which is the highest rate in NHL history. League-wide save percentage sitting at 900. That's the lowest since 2005, 2006. Third lowest in the last 30 NHL seasons. And 76.5% of overtime games end in the 5-minute overtime period. The highest rate of OT goals in NHL history. So we're seeing a lot less shootouts, which is good. As much as you have suffered in overtime this season, you're very unlucky. Let me just say that. Although it has been turning around a little bit lately, eh?
Not really.
No, not really. Okay.
I've been
Well, it
logging
seemed
it
like
all,
it.
and I
It
think
seemed like it.
I think it was at about 8 and 28, and
Yeah, that's
now what did I
insane.
send you? Now it's like 12 and 35. So it's actually, I guess you could say that has stabilized, right? Even if that's still below 500.
Yeah, and
Whatever.
I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but I mean, it seems like your record in overtime is very highly correlated with a good season. So hopefully things can turn around there. But yeah, when I have a game go to overtime, I'll watch the 5-minute overtime period if I've bet on the game. But the second it goes to a shootout, I just change the channel because I don't like to watch my bets lose that way in the skills competition.
Yeah,
But
and I
Go
don't
ahead.
like the 3-on-3 is a little solved, but like you said, it's the because it does get a little stale when teams regroup over and over and just hold it
Yeah.
and let the other team get tired. But like you said, it's been ending it more often than not. And I think it's, as much as I hate it from a betting perspective, I don't really think there's that much better of solutions out there. I still prefer it over a tie. Honestly, I feel like it's a fun little finish at the end of a good game. So yeah. And I mean, eventually bit more of these results will go my way from a betting perspective, and then I'll like it even more. But I feel like people are a little hard on it. I think that the main change that I continue to believe would be the best is if they did 3-point regulation wins. I don't think getting rid of the loser point is a good idea because, like I always note, if you get rid of the loser point, all of a sudden you have teams that are just getting such an advantage from being the ones that are the best at 3-on-3. It takes away that other little which is why, yeah, I just think the 3-point regulation win is the perfect way to solve it. But not sure the league wants that because I think we'd start to see a lot of separation in the standings a lot quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, looking ahead to tomorrow, I didn't have a whole lot of time to look at all the games, but a few things did jump out to me, and one of them is the Oilers at the Pens. Not only have the Oilers, of course, obviously, I want to mention that Stuart Skinner was shaken up, had to leave that game versus the Bruins on Tuesday, and still no update there as of right now. But I mean, looking at the Oilers at the Pens tomorrow, Edmonton has won 7 straight games versus Pittsburgh. But not only that, or not only have they won 7 straight games, they've also covered the puck line in all 7 of those games, and not just by 2 goals. All of those wins have been 3 goals or more over the last 7 games versus Pittsburgh. We're talking home games, road games, whatever. So I definitely am leaning towards the Edmonton Oilers on the puck line here. On Thursday, they've been a lot better at covering the puck line on the road than they have been at home this season. So that's another thing that has me leaning in that direction. And right now, I mean, there are it varies definitely from shop to shop as far as how good the puck line is. But I think even at plus 120, it's maybe worth a bet. But there are probably better odds out there, and not a whole lot of books here in Canada have puck line odds posted right now. But you'll probably see that one added to my Action Network account a little bit later today when lines populate at various sports books. But the other one that has been standing out to me here, obviously, we know that Mackenzie Blackwood is going to start tomorrow against the Minnesota Wild, and they've been pretty good without Kirill Kaprizov in the lineup. Obviously, Jared Spurgeon also out of the lineup as well. But now with Brock Faber out, I mean, I think minus 130 might be a little bit short when we're talking about an Avalanche team, even on the back-to-back. Starting their starting goaltender on the second half, I think minus 130 might be a little short here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that is definitely a good look. And then the other one that I like, probably going to be a little harder to make the argument. And I was hoping for a slightly better number, but I like the spot and the bet enough that I'm still quite happy with minus 105. I just thought it could have been one where we saw some surprising like plus 115s out there. Is the Seattle Kraken are, I think, in a really good spot. Big rest advantage over Columbus tomorrow, who won't have Monahan. And I just think overall it's a good time to buy on the Kraken. We've talked before about how the gap between, and I mean, I guess you could officially confirm that Descartes will play, but it looks, all signs seem to be that he's going to get back in the lineup in this game. And a huge part of the Kraken's ugly results lately has been just how bad Grubauer has been. He's been horrible. He was pretty terrible last year. And I feel like them getting Descartes back in this spot could cause a solid resurgence. And I think overall they haven't been as bad as we've seen lately. I feel like this is kind of a low water mark, a very winnable game versus the Blue Jackets. And I just think it's a really good time to buy on a Kraken team that's probably not as bad as kind of their reputation and record says right now. I feel like we've probably seen the worst of it. I still like the back end a lot. They have some decent offensive depth. So I think kind of a good time to sell on Columbus and back Seattle here. They're minus 105. So we'll see. I mean, to some people, I think they're probably thinking that Columbus at home, with the way they played lately, that number looks almost short. But I think in this particular spot, there's a lot that suggests it's actually a really good time to buy on the Kraken. So I think that looks like a good bet. We'll see. I kind of feel like even with how the Columbus have been, this game's still going to close closer to minus 120 Kraken. But again, that remains to be seen. And these look ahead spots, they've been tough on me. I feel like it was interesting listening to you rattle off all those stats about the rested home teams too, because I feel like a lot of them, or the rested road teams, because I feel like there's been a lot where I've unintentionally kind of like those spots and they haven't gone my way. I think that's been a lot of the overtime losses. But yeah, solid
Variance,
spot.
Man.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, sometimes it's good to step back and say that, but frick, I feel like I'd like to start getting better soon.
Yeah, no, for sure. I understand totally. The Columbus Blue Jackets, they've only been a favorite 9 times this season, which is honestly more than I thought they would have been a favorite, to be honest. So, but they haven't been profitable. If you bet a unit on the Columbus Blue Jackets in every game that they have been a favorite, all 9 games, you've only won 4, you've lost 5, and you're down about a unit and a half. So yeah, maybe a good spot to not back the Blue Jackets and back the Seattle Kraken. But I guess go ahead.
It'd be interesting to see too if you looked at the profitability. I think the Kraken have had a fair bit of market respect, so even Descartes might still not be profitable, but he's 12-9-2, so really has just been a night and day thing between him and Grubauer. If they had him in all the starts, it really shows they would have been.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't have it separated by who starts in goal and whatnot. But the Kraken year to date are down. Well, they're the 23rd team in terms of profitability on the money line overall. We're talking both home and away games. If you bet 1 unit on the Kraken to win every game this season, you would be down 5.25 units, which I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that is almost solely could be, the blame could be solely put on Philip Grubauer, because I think if you just looked at the cord, like you said, they probably are at least break even, if not profitable, when he is in.
Are the Preds still bottom?
Yeah, they are still at the very bottom. If you
Islanders
bet
in there?
$1, if you bet, yeah. I mean, after the Preds, it's just a collection of teams from New York State: the Sabres, Rangers, and the Islanders, and then the Bruins make up the the 5 least profitable teams this season. But Nashville certainly takes the cake. If you had bet $1 on every Preds game, or on the Preds to win every game this season, you'd be down approximately $17 right now. The next worst team is the Buffalo Sabres, sorry. And you'd be down about $11 if you bet $1 on the Sabres to win every game. The Rangers and the Islanders both around minus $10 or 10 units, and they are the only double-digit losses. Not even the Bruins are in the double-digit territory.
I'll put you on the spot here. Do you think the Bruins will get a win this week, or do you think the losing streak will hit 6? Because they play. What did it? They played the Lightning, then the Panthers, then the Lightning again. So this could be looking at an 8-game slump.
Look, let's put it this way: if Don Sweeney gets fired at the end of it, then I hope they don't get a win this week. So let's just say that.
I think it's got to be due. Yeah, feels like it's time.
He put the team together, man. It's
and the cupboards are looking bare to keep twisting the knife for you.
Very bare. Although, I mean, I do think the Capitals are a great example of what you can do on the fly. You need a couple of good drafts, a good off season or two, and you can turn things around pretty quick. And I think Washington is a great example of that. So, Boston has some stuff to work with, although the cupboards are bare. I think, with the right GM, they could make something happen here and be back to being, among the league's best teams in relatively short order. I think, he struggled this year, but Jeremy Swayman is going to be one of the league's best goaltenders for a long time to come. And as long as you have a guy like that, I mean, Hellebuck, for example, like he's obviously the Jets have not been the best team every year of Hellebuck's career, but he's been able to take them into the playoffs pretty much every single season. And I think Swayman will be that type of goaltender when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they have some of the toughest pieces in place, Pasternak obviously as well, but I think that's what makes the rest of the work Sweeney's done stand out so much, that he's kind of not insulated them overly well.
No, for sure. I mean, I think if you fire Don Sweeney, I think Cam Neely should be out the door with him. I think they're a package. I think they've always been a package, really. So, I don't understand why you would want to keep on Neely. Is he's got his fingerprints all over this roster as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's too bad, but I think something has to change with the philosophy of this team. I don't think Joe Sacco has done a bad. I think Joe Sacco's done a good job with what he's had so far, but clearly, the wheels are falling off here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Montgomery, obviously, no one's disputing if he's a good coach. So when you see him get fired mid-season, new guy comes in and he helped them get it going for a bit there. But I think more or less it seems pretty clear that the flaws are beyond coaching.
Sorry, I had to clear my throat. Had a frog in there, so I muted myself. But I'm back, so I'm just going to recap my bets quickly. This show has gone on a lot longer than I expected for a Wednesday, a small Wednesday slate. But that's all right. I think it's been a good show. Adrian Kempe to score an anytime goal at plus 160. I've got Cale McCarr to go over 3.5 shots at plus 125 or better. Like I said, plus 134 is available out there. And I think you should take advantage of that one. And then for tomorrow, I did lock it in over at North Star Bets / Bet Rivers. They are one of the books with odds up for tomorrow's games right now. And they are offering the Avalanche right now at minus 124 odds. And I think that's a great price against a Minnesota Wild team that's been good without some of their key players, but I'm not sure how long they can keep that up. And I think that is a more than reasonable price to be taking the Avalanche heading into that matchup on Thursday. Nick, you want to quickly recap what you have for tonight, and if you have anything you like for tomorrow?
Yeah, I like Arturi Lehkonen. We talked about it, but that one is now minus 175. So I'll note that. We obviously threw that out earlier in the show, but the lines moved quick as people pieced together the Giroux news. I like Bertuzzi to get a point at plus 120. JT Miller to get 3 shots at plus 150. Kachuk to go under half a point at plus 150. And then tomorrow, I like the Seattle Kraken to beat the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks for another great show, Nick. And thanks to everybody for tuning in on Twitter and on YouTube. And as I mentioned on yesterday's show, if you have not gotten over and linked up to the podcast on the new feed, that description or that link might be in the description. I don't know if Jake put it in there today or not, but all right, the link is in the YouTube description, so you can find it there, and you can get linked up with the new podcast feed and start receiving episodes just like normal again. And yeah, it's been great. We've seen a great response from people over on the new feed. Lots of downloads, lots of views on Twitter, on the Daily Faceoff Twitter account. So we're very thankful for that. But yeah, keep tuning in, and hopefully we'll right this ship, as it's been a little bit of a struggle since returning. We got that post-holiday handicapping hangover going on right now, well into January.
We'll just blame it on players haven't fully locked in yet. It's been hard to predict, but
that's right.
I mean, you were on fire there for 2 months.
2 months,
I think, on the show.
Yeah.
So
no, it was.
Can't blame yourself.
But the run over the last two weeks or so has been almost as equally bad as that 2 month run was good. So it's been definitely a little bit hard to deal with, but I've got a smile on my face and I'm persevering. But anyways, until tomorrow, we'll be back for a show at 1 p.m. Eastern time right here on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel on Thursday. So until then, good luck with your bets and gamble responsibly. Don't forget that.